crack of a beverage to get it going this week. Welcome to Camp Okayist, part of the Okayist Podcast Network. Of course, Camp Okayist brought to you by X2 Power, which is powered by X2 Power. You can pick up X2 batteries at your local Batteries Plus store to power all of your outdoor adventures. Joined this week by a second-time guest, Jon Reznack, a.k.a. Rez, our friend, because, well, we both had some weekends this past weekend that I think really, again, sets the tone and really settles in what it means to, like, be at camp. You know what I mean? What camp is and what it's all about, and the fact that sometimes, well, let's be real, we struggle. And we have times where we think that everything is like going to work out perfectly, and it all goes south very, very quickly. And that is exactly without giving away too much of what happened this past weekend. I had the big Badger State kayak series Midsummer Open up in Door County, my home water, which the last time Rez was on the show, we were talking about fishing together in the door. Things didn't go as planned, and kind of learning experiences from that and ways that you can take lessons forward in whatever it is that you do in the outdoors. So we're going to get into some of that stuff throughout the show today. 4th of July is coming up. We've got summer like in full swing and a lot of things happening in and around the area. Of course, don't forget the Okayist Hunter Foam Fest happening August 31st, Horicon Marsh Archers, where you can take part in that. Again, all details on that are on the okayisthunter.com. And of course, make sure you're following us at Camp Okayist on all of your socials. We've got Instagram. Basically, we're active on Instagram. This obviously being a YouTube channel. So if you're watching this stream or just listening, make sure to give us a like, big old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. That all helps kind of, we'll say, massage the algorithm, so to speak. So we thank you for joining us as we get rolling here this weekend. There's a little bit of noise. You're outside in your backyard, Rez. What paint the picture? What's going on here?
We got 4th of July coming. I'm smoking some meat, hanging out, smoking a cigar. Got a nice little ranch water going on with some Lalo Blanco tequila in there, and just hanging out. And summertime, man. Got to do what you got to do.
Founders All Day IPA, their West Coast All Day IPA is my go-to
Nice.
For this week. Again, I love my West Coast IPAs, and I love that this is, I think, less alcohol percentage than even a Miller Lite, so I can drink it and not get schmammered very, very quickly.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you got to have a good, reliable drink every once in a while that you can just drink all day and still function.
Yeah. So smoking meat, you said you do for the 4th of July, Rez. What exactly? What meat are you smoking? What are you smoking on? Let's paint the picture, because I know as much as it's about hunting, fishing, camping outdoors, it's all about cooking too.
You want to see the picture?
Yeah, let's see this.
All
I mean,
right,
I know those
there.
listening to the podcast, it doesn't do any good, but those watching on the YouTube stream are going to get a look at it. And
so what I got is like a 10-pound-ish like pork loin. My grandpa wanted at a meat raffle, and he gave it to me. So what more Wisconsin than this, right?
Okay, so to quickly explain, I'm going to pause you there, Rez. If you don't know what a meat raffle is, this is something that takes place in bars and VFWs and whatever throughout the state of Wisconsin, where it's exactly that. Basically, you buy an entry ticket or a raffle ticket, and when your name gets drawn, you win pieces of meat. Or people will bring meat, and then that's the part of the thing. You bring meat, you get a raffle. So, meat raffles are a big thing in the state of Wisconsin, just like when you go to ice fishing jamborees. I always grew up with the paddle wheel, where it's like $1 for 2 paddles, and then they spin this big wheel. You hear it going forever. If your number's picked, you win slab of bacon or a bottle of booze, and it's normally the lowest rail crap stuff you don't want anyway. But it's like ingrained in my brain as a Wisconsinite. So there paints the picture of what a meat raffle is and more.
Yeah. So he won it for with the Walleye Unlimited Club, which is a huge. They're actually in the Freshwater Hall of Fame, so he's been a member there for a long time, and it was actually for their ice fishing jamboree, which this year in Wisconsin there was no ice. I fished 2 times, one with you, and then one with my grandpa, and that was pretty much the first and last time within a 2-week span that I was out on the ice. So he won this, and then I told him I'd smoke it up for 4th of July. So I got this pork loin. I got Killer Barbecue Rub on there. Let's get this.
Is that the name of it? Killer Barbecue Rub?
Yeah, that's it. So
Oh,
we
doing
got
the
a
old
nice
Weber
crust.
kettle.
Yep,
Okay.
Weber kettle. Got the coals on one side here, nothing on the
Indirect
other
heat.
side. Yep, indirect heat. Um, got the nice crust on it so far.
It looks good.
It's looking good. So I'm gonna put this on the smoke for about 5 hours, and then after that, I'm gonna put it in a Nesco, and I'm gonna put it in some Sprecher Cherry Cola.
Interesting.
If you've never finished off your meat with cherry cola, it's phenomenal. I made pulled pork in the Instant Pot like two-ish weeks ago with a pork butt. Put cherry cola in there, put a nice rub on there, seared it real quick. It was phenomenal.
See, that's my pork shoulder cheat that I do. I call it like my 6-hour cheat. So instead of smoking a pork shoulder on, my offset pit or my Weber or whatever I want to smoke it on, like for 18 hours, what I do is I will take it and I will split the bone-in pork shoulder in half. Like there's a way that you can split it in half, leave the bone in,
Mm-hmm.
and I will rub it all up and I'll smoke it in 2 separate pieces. Now, the reason doing that is because then you get more crust. But then also fits in the Instant Pot better. So I take it after after 5 hours on the smoke. I then put it in the Instant Pot with some of like your injection liquid and stuff like that, and then do it for an hour. Falls apart. It literally is the best pulled pork, and you saved yourself a ton of time. Some of
Oh
the
yeah,
barbecue purists will get all up my butt about it and be like, "That's not barbecue." No, that's just being smart. But that's exactly what that is. That is being smart.
yeah. I mean, time is of the essence when you don't have 18 hours to smoke. I mean, you just got to be smart about it and use your resources. I think it still turns out phenomenal whether you put it on the smoke for the full 18 hours or you put it in Instant Pot or Nesco or whatever, as long as you got the moisture inside the meat. Now, because this is a pork loin, I don't have all the marbling inside the meat like you would on a pork butt. So
Right.
that's why I'm putting it in the Nesco for so long, is to recoup some of that moisture inside the meat. And the cherry cola, it just gets all sticky, especially when you're making pulled pork with it. I mean, you don't even have to put barbecue sauce on top of it.
That's really interesting. The cherry cola. Okay.
Yeah,
Does it?
just think about it. You got all the sugar, and when you cook sugar down, what does it do? It caramelizes and gets
Yeah.
all,
So
syrupy. And
you have to use like regular full sugar soda. Like you can't use like a diet soda. Like, I
no,
feel
you
like
got
that would not do the same.
well, and why I use Sprecher is because of the honey that they use to make it. So you don't have all the processed sugar and all that. I mean, I eat sugar every day, but you don't have all the processed sugar in there. I think it gets a little bit thicker. It gets more flavor. I think Sprecher Cherry Cola has way more flavor than like a Cherry Coke or a Cherry Pepsi. So support something Wisconsin. Go ahead and run it, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, I love it. See, our 4th of July tradition now around our house is we do a full asada, total Mexican style backyard cookout, doing, arancheras, or most people would know of it as carne asada. So skirt steaks, essentially marinated, grill those up. I'm doing some adobo chickens. I was going to do some El Pastor, but I think we might have a little too much of stuff because my brother-in-law is going to be bringing some stuff over that he'll throw over the fire. Obviously, we're rolling a bunch of quesadillas and chorizo. My wife makes killer ass beans. Shout out to my wife. She always jokes all the time. She's like, and this, by the way, you guys, you're gonna love this because you, my wife, have communicated like when I'm fishing tournaments and stuff like that. But not, and you've met her like at a brewery game, like we got together.
Right.
But like spending a lot of time and stuff. And I remember when you and I were fishing in Door County together, and I was talking about getting home, like my wife was making, I don't know what, some sort of Mexican dish. He's like, wait a minute, is your wife Mexican? I'm like, no, she's just been with me long enough, and a lot of my really close best friends growing up, all of Mexican descent, we'll call it, and all first generation here. So yeah, I've been exposed to it and a big fan of it. And so that's what we do. Is nothing says Merca quite like making nothing but a bunch of Mexican food. But anyway, what I was trying to say was she makes amazing beans, and she has kind of discovered this little hack of adding chorizo into her pintos. So it's like frijoles con chorizo y queso, like type. Oh, man,
Ooh,
it is.
so good.
You can mix it with
That sounds
rice.
really
You
good.
can just take a tortilla and just grab a. Oh, it is. Yes, my French Scandinavian wife makes amazing Mexican food. That just
That's
goes to
awesome.
show the mixing pot that we are and can be, when we accept all things.
Yep.
So, oh, do we want to get to the crap the terrible weekends. I don't know if you can see a little bit of I don't know what shows behind me on screen. There's a brand new motor guide trolling motor sitting behind me that has to do with I know we touched on it, Matt and I, last week, that I did get a new kayak. And the question was, as we wrap the show, what kayak was I going to fish up in Door County this weekend? We knew the answer to that as we were exiting the show last week. I ended up going with the new canoe. The new boat came up there, and it was amazing to have fishing on big water. If you're not familiar with Door County, with Sturgeon Bay, with just all of that, it's Lake Michigan, any of the Great Lakes, really, they're inland oceans. I know you and I have had that conversation, Rez.
Oh yeah.
And so it can get tricky. Winds can be crazy. Weather was not in my favor in this tournament, and that's what I'm going to blame for my downfall, so to speak. I had no practice. I got no practice in because every time I had a chance to run up there and practice, which you got to remember where I live, it's about a 3-hour commitment each way.
Yep.
So it's not like I can just like up on a Wednesday night, just boop, I'm run. Like this is like a full day commitment to do it. And so I was kind of limited in when we could. And obviously with this exact tournament, we had an off limits period. So for a month leading up to it, we couldn't be on the body of water in any way, shape, or form. And then when it came to practice, the official practice, it started a week before the tournament. So we had 1 week of official practice, and you had to practice from a vessel that was eligible to fish. So like, I could have fished from either of my kayaks, but you had to fish from a kayak. I couldn't like jump in your bass boat, Rez, or I couldn't hire a guy. Like you can't do those things. So
Right.
you're under some limitations. And so the weekend that practice started, it was just a disaster. It was thunderstorms. And again, 3-hour commitment. I didn't want to drive up there and get thunderstormed off the water. That's nobody's benefit. So I had no practice the weekend before. Was supposed to get up there the day before for sure, like really, really early morning, have a full day of practice all over the place. Weather sucked, but besides that, we had a little sitter situation, so I was not even able to leave town until later in the afternoon. So there was no practice. I mean, I basically got to drive around, look at a couple of ramps, just kind of get a feel for what the wind was doing to the water based on the wind that I had on Friday nights before we got into the tournament Saturday morning. So I mean, I was going in blind, but going off of history and again, growing up in Green Bay and growing up fishing the Door, all of the Bay and Lake Michigan and all that stuff with Door County, I felt okay to roll with it. And well, as we'll quickly learn, anytime you're overly confident in something, I feel like that is your easy downfall. I'm not saying I was overly confident in like that I was going to go out there and win the tournament, or like I even had like I didn't know I had fished. I didn't know what I had. I know I random roll the dice. Anybody could have a shot, but I was pretty confident I was going to catch a limit. I'd have fish. I was confident I was going to get close to 80 inches. I felt like that was just easily doable up there, and fishing the areas that I had targeted, it should have happened. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But we'll get to that later. I don't want to get too much into that. I want to hear a bit about your disaster weekend, Rez.
Man, so I would say it's been like 2 weekends in a row where it's been not good. So I was lucky. I had 2 weekends, two days that I can get out and fish. Wanted to go out with my brother and my dad. My brother only fishes like 4 or 5 times a year. He's not really big into it. He just likes going out, hanging out pretty much. But he likes catching fish. He's a competitive person like myself. And so we get to Okachi, and that's a lake that my dad and I have been really fishing a lot because we have the Big Bass Battle on Okachi coming up August 3rd.
Which
And
they were just talking about that on OKS Fisher this week too.
Yep.
Greg
Yep,
and Matt were talking to the guys from that tournament.
Yep.
If you want to hear more, you can check out OKS Fisher on that.
Yeah, so we went out there and we were pre-fishing. We literally launched the boat, and you've been in my boat, so when you back the boat in, the design of the trailer and the boat, Tidecraft just didn't produce a good trailer. So when you back the boat off or you get it floating on the back end, the bow of the boat tends to slam down. Well, it slammed down and broke a prop. It broke our trolling motor prop.
Oh, so you weren't even in the water when your prop broke. That was
No
trailering.
It was we were launching the boat, and we were out on the water for a whole whopping 2 minutes. My old man, he dumped us in the water. It broke right away. He came out, jumped on the boat, and I was like, hey, we broke a prop. And I'm like, we can roll with it, but it's probably going to screw the trolling motor up. We can drift. And then all of a sudden it started to rain. And we're like, great. This is just perfect. It's like, it was salt on the wound.
Oh, yeah.
And then we drove back from Okachi to my parents' place where I keep the boat, and went to Fleet Farm. They didn't have the right size prop, so we tried taking the prop that they had and making it work. That didn't work, so we scrapped that. Um, Fortunately, I cleaned up that afternoon. I took my little one out. We went over to Foxbrook Park in Brookfield and caught some bluegills out there, and it was more about just getting out and being with him. So that made my day right there, is just to get out with the little one and catch some bluegills off of a dock in a pond. It's like one of those perfect, like, all right, whatever, shit happens, get over it, and just move on. And then this weekend, I just realized that I don't fish enough anymore to be as good as what I used to be, because with the front set move through and everything, I caught one pike on Sunday, and we were out on Okachi again. Caught one pike, missed a whole bunch of fish, couldn't connect on them, and then my dad ended up catching 3 bass, one like 2.5 pounder or so. But it was one of those. At the end of the day, my dad asked, he goes, "What could we have done differently?" And I said, I looked at him and I smiled and I said, "We suck at fishing. Like, we are terrible at this. I don't know what we could have done. Maybe if I would fish a little bit more, I would stay connected to what the patterns are doing and what the fish are doing." But we ran stuff that we usually catch fish in the past. We had a lot of topwater blowups. They were just not. They were hitting the baits with closed mouths. So you couldn't get them hooked up.
I'm familiar with that. My first tournament of the season was, I mean, it was 30 blowups I had that day, and I
Yeah,
boated 3. Like that was insane.
it happens, and I mean, thinking about it, it's like one of those where you just got to brush it off and make your next cast, because you just never know what's going to happen. You got to have short memories.
Yep.
Like playing football, I played defensive back in high school. I was okay. Like, I would miss tackles here and there, but you got another play. Make it happen on another play. You got to have short memories. So,
As Ted Lasso would say, be a goldfish.
yeah, 30-second or 3-second memory.
That's right. You said something, Rez, that I think really brings the whole point home is, what could you guys have done differently? I don't fish enough. I don't fish enough to know what's going on, to keep up with it. And the reason that jumps out to me is because I feel that's sometimes where people will get discouraged, whether it's hunting, fishing, whatever they're choosing, volleyball, soft, whatever sport or whatever task that you choose, and feel like they're failing or they're let down. It's practice makes perfect, repetitions, all those things. Any sport that does that. But you know what? You're not the only person. Like, and that's, again, it keep bringing up social media. Like, I feel like social media being the highlight reel, you feel like everyone around you does nothing but just like catch fish or shoot the biggest bucks or limit out on ducks all the time. Whatever outdoor sport it is, right? And when you don't, you feel less than. But let's be real, more than 95% of everyone else out there is doing exactly like you are. And the attitude to just be like, you know what? It is what it is. Like, yes, could this be better? Yes. But I'm making the most of what I have. And that's what y'all are doing. Like, time is limited. You've got 2 kids, and anyone that's a dad or a mom or an uncle, and you understand that kids take time and commitment, and time and commitment for them is time that you don't have for the things that you want to do or pursue or whatever. And yes, there are people that just go ahead and do it anyway. Like, I'm not here to judge anyone on how they choose to live or what their family or whatever dynamic is. But, a lot of us, it's a sacrifice. And so, yeah, we might not be as good at fishing as we used to be if we did it all the time. And then suddenly now we don't as much. It's just like if Michael Jordan, think about when he walked away from basketball, right? And then he went and played baseball. And he came back and played basketball. Was he as good when he came back?
Right.
I mean, arguably somewhat, but like maybe not as good. Anytime you step away from something, you don't go through the repetitions of something. You shoot your bow leading up to bow season. And by the time bow season comes, you feel good and comfortable with it. Then the next spring, let's be real, next midsummer, you pull your bow out again for the first time and you feel like you never shot the damn thing. If you don't keep up with repetitions of something, it's not going to be what it was. And I think it's big of you to have, recognize that and thought that. And, that's the way I've felt for the last couple of seasons at times where it's like, come on, like I can do this. And
that's
I'm
but
I'm
that's
not
a
out there every single day. And there's a lot of these guys that I compete against that literally are out there every single day.
Right. But that's also the tough part though. And like in our situation, with kids and jobs and everything like that, and how much we used to get out, we have that mental block in there of I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to the repetition, but it's like you got that mind block of you're disappointed in yourself, but then you have to have that self control of saying, but you can't give up. You gotta go harder, and don't overthink things, but overthink them. And it's such a fishing and the outdoors and being successful in this is a big mind game. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's naturally just good at it. Like, look at the elite guys. Those guys fish their tail off and they fish all the time. That's why they're at the level that they are. You look at local guys like Caleb Kufal. I fished against him all of the time, donated a ton of money to him, but he was out there every single day. He was a guide. He worked at a bait shop. He knew every step of the way. And that's why he's where he is now on the Elite Series. So, you know,
Yeah, there's something to be said with that. And I relate with what you were saying in that moment of like, I know what I'm doing, like, again, that was me going into this tournament this past weekend in kayak bass tournament, looking for 5 of the longest smallmouth, catch, photo, release, which by the way was so fun up there, like having all these kayaks up in Door County. I don't know, like, if we've had more kayaks than ever before, but there are like people like at every boat ramp and all over the place that were like just mind blown at our boats. And then like I remember talking to someone like, "Oh, what are you up here for?" I'm like, "Oh, a big tournament, the Badger State Kayak Championship, this and that." And they're like, "Oh, I never heard of that." "Oh, that's interesting. Wait, you fish for bass from a kayak?" Like, it's always fun, but I don't know
I
where I
mean,
was going.
fishing up there in a kayak, I did it once. And I don't have, when I had my fishing kayak, I didn't have a pedal drive. I didn't have a trolling motor on there. I had my cannons right here to get me around out there. And I fished Egg Harbor, and that was the most fun I ever had fishing in a kayak because you just get in certain areas, you got to play the wind, you got to be really smart about it, but you can be extremely stealthy. So when I
Yeah.
was up there, the fish were up super shallow, and I was like, ooh, I got this where other boats can't even get back into that area because of the
Yep.
rocks in Egg Harbor. I mean, ooh, it was so much fun. And and I was talking to my dad about your tournament because the last couple of years, that I've known you and you started fishing the tournaments and everything, I live vicariously through you in those tournaments because I miss tournament fishing so much. And my dad and we had that conversation where I was like, I miss tournament fishing. I just don't have the time because if I go out there and you have the same mindset too, you're not out there to just catch fish. You're out there to place and cash a check, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
And so I sit there.
I'm out there to catch fish. I'm out there to have fun, first off, because I wouldn't be there if it's not fun, then I'm not gonna do it anymore.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
then like there's the competitive part of like, I wanna catch fish, and
Hmm.
it's not even, to me, I think honestly, not even about like competing and beating someone else. It's about proving to myself that I can still do it. It's about proving myself that I know what the hell I'm doing, that I can catch them. I know
Right.
I can. I do it all the time. I've had many days this year where I'm, out 30 some fish a day, like catching. It's I can do it. Just can you do
Yeah,
it at the right times?
right. So, we got some bikers back behind
It's
us
like,
here.
is everything okay there? Was that an
Yeah.
alarm on your on the Weber kettle or what?
No, no, no. The alarm's me. That's why I'm sitting out here watching this. But yeah, I told my dad, I'm like, I want to get back into tournament fishing. I just don't know how to do it with, my job takes a lot of time away from my family. How do I manage my family at the same time? Because to me, to be successful, in a tournament, you gotta be out on the water a lot. And, in the past when I was successful, I was out, on the water a year, 170 days a year. So 3 to 4 days a week I was out on the water. I could track those fish from, open water all the way through ice and all the way through ice out. And, you get down to it like now I can't just jump into a tournament. I could get lucky, but I'm not going to jump into a tournament and cash a check right away. I got to
Right.
practice on it. And, watching you and talking to your wife about it, because we cheer you on. I don't know if she tells you what we talk about, but we
I'm not
constantly.
exactly, but she's like I know she talked to me this week and she's like I was so pumped. I got to send Rez the link. I
Well,
got to it first.
I was out at Summerfest on Friday night with my wife at the All American Rejects concert, and I was just late waking up in the morning. Usually, I'm up at 5 o'clock, getting ready. I get the link, send it over to your wife.
Yeah, I think
But we cheer.
one of them you text me. It was like 4:30 in the morning, and I was just sitting there waiting for takeoff. And I was sitting there sipping my coffee, and because I've got on my two Garmin graphs, one of them it's like tied with my phone. So if you text me, like it pops up literally on my screen, so I can read my text messages right there on my Garmin, and it'll like make a little sound, and I can just quick glance down, see if it's something important or not.
Yeah, and your wife and I, we were talking, and I was like, oh, he's going to do good. She told me that you don't have very good cell service. So, and you told me that too. Like if I got a 0, don't panic. I have one bar. It's not good.
It
Just wait until
was
I get back.
it was
And
bad when I'm up there Friday night. I literally had to stand like on a rock on shoreline, holding my phone above my head to try and hope to catch a signal to somewhere across the lake, that could relay it off. And like I actually reached out to our tournament director because, we run everything through Tourney X. So it's an app
Mhm.
that you catch photo, everything all within this app, and that's what keeps track of all the scores and all this stuff. But they give you a code every morning. Okay, so like that's so you can't like be catching this fish during the week and then show the same pictures. You got to have like location on your phone, like it's like impossible to cheat in this. I shouldn't say impossible. I mean, I guess someone could figure it out, but there's a lot of ways where it's done really well. So you get this code in the morning, you got to write down on your certain tag, and that's how they know it's that day, it's whatever, and it's a unique code to like each person, except for in some of these like major big tournaments, they'll just give out like one code to everybody, and then day two again, same code but to everybody because it doesn't matter. It's limited people in it, so to speak. But I wanted to make sure that like I could get the code because if I don't have a code, or at least to let them know that like, hey, like I'm here. Like, can I try and text to like use that as a check-in or whatever? So he just texted back, and I was like, anything you need to know. Luckily, that got out. He replied back with the code. So lucky I had that. So I felt good in the morning. Like, you know what? Hell if I don't have cell signal. I know I'm not that far away from where I can get some cell service. For like when I get off the water, you get basically like an hour buffer between lines out and last submission for your photos. So again, if you're in that situation where you don't have cell service, so yeah, there's the long walk for the short trip to it. I had no cell service where I was in far northern Door County.
Yeah, and I texted Sarah, DM Sarah, and I was like, hey, how do you do? And she's like, he's struggling right now. And I just kept thinking to myself, he's gonna do it. He's gonna get on fish. And every tournament we cheer you on. I always, when you do well, and I start doing calculations. Oh, he's got to call this 15-incher for like a 17-incher. He's gonna get bumped up a couple more spots too. That's gonna be really good. And we'll just keep cheering you on all day until the end of
I
the
feel it.
tournament. And
And honestly, I feel it, man. I appreciate it. I feel it. I feel it when I'm out there.
it's one of those good feelings that you know I'm excited for you because I get to watch you, and then I get that sense of, ooh, do I really want to spend 7 grand and get a kayak all loaded up and do this and see if the wife and the kids will allow me to do it, and or what other hobbies do I have to give up? Do I have to give up duck hunting to get into more tournaments? Like there's that give and take again. Um, But it's like,
everything.
do I really want? Should I do it? And I think about it often. Of do I get the Old Town 120 autopilot and put a Helix 15 on there and just make it the perfect boat?
I
But
feel that I've finally got the perfect boat now, and I've stuck enough into it. But you don't have to go that. Like, again, my new canoe, the price between the new canoe adding the XI3, the trolling motor that I've got in the front of that. I mean, you can't even get close to the price that would touch you for, some of the other boats out there, Hobie, or others. And I'm not knocking any of those boats, by the way. I'm not knocking anything. It just there's and especially now after being in a new canoe and knowing a couple of guys that have been a part of the team and talking to them that like how stable the boats are, I will tell you, I've never been in a kayak. I've fished in Hobies. I fished in the ocean in Hobies. Had my lightning strike. I've been in a couple other ones, but never like in a new canoe, specifically the unlimited. Dude, I've never been able to like stand up and like walk to the front, walk back, turn, like do circles in a boat without feeling tippy at all. Like it just felt like I was standing on like the front deck of a bass boat. It's insane how stable it is. And this
that's
is
awesome.
not an ad. I'm just honest review of where I'm at with it. I absolutely love the boat, and I think it played so well for me in this tournament up in Door County this weekend. So, should we jump into the meat and potatoes of how I went about this? Because I haven't even really told you the story. Like you were following along, but you didn't know exactly what happened.
Yeah, lay it on me. I want to hear this because if I can picture it in my head on how everything played out, and if I was in that situation, I'd be right there with you. If you struggled as much as what you said you did, and you went to the areas that I think you went to, I would have been right there with you. Like I don't think you made a bad move at all because
Yeah.
I would have repeated history as well.
So my morning started off. I launched at the launch that I was basically around like Ephraim. Okay, somewhere around the Ephraim area, and I was going to fish one of the bays up there on the bay side. A couple other guys launched with me, and they kept going out to some islands. I believe Strawberry Island is where they run off to. And I wanted to stay in the bay because to me, I wanted to fish on the rock transition. And you know what I'm talking about, Rez, finding those areas where like the boulder and pebble rock gives way into like big sheet, like kind of sheet rock. So it's like that bouldery bottom versus like flat bottom, but it's not sand. So like kind of trying to fish those transitions. And in that area, a lot of time that transition was right around that like 12 to 16 foot of water is kind of where that transition took place. So, again, I'm going to this, I'm thinking when we were up there fishing last time was pre-spawn. I know the spawn has happened. I know what's gone through all these fish should be post-spawn and actually coming out of post-spawns. So like a lot of these bigger fish they're going to be deeper. They're going to be on the deeper side. There shouldn't be any fish that I care about. They're going to be up shallow. Normal thought process. Again, look at the date. It's end of June, early July. Like it all kind of makes sense based on that stuff. At least I feel from experience, it makes sense. So I launch in this bay. I stay in and I start fishing. And having live scope is great to be able to just kind of watch, and you can really pick out that transition. Or once you start getting next to weeds, like you can pick the stuff out all around you. Absolutely love it as a tool for those things. I'm not even like using it like video game fishing, although I did a little bit this past weekend. So I was just kind of like roaming to start and just kind of like scanning around, looking to kind of get a mark or like to see if I could find like a big boulder or, if I saw fish. Started seeing fish right. I'm like, cool. So I just hit the spot lock and I flip a drop shot out. So the other thing that I should mention too is we're a couple by the time the show airs, just over a week away from ICAST. And X-Zone Pro Series Lures has got some new baits coming out at ICAST this year, which they teased a little bit to it on their Instagram this past week. The Stealth Finesse series, which is a completely different line of baits. So I've had some of these, and I was fishing them this weekend. And so I was excited to fish these baits because once they come out, you're going to know exactly why I was so excited about it. And so one of them I had on a drop shot, the other I had on a Ned rig. And I don't really fish a Ned a lot, but I know that it catches fish, and I know in the scenario that I was working, it definitely could play well for me to have a chance. So first I throw a drop shot out, kind of got nothing, so I play with that a little bit. And I'm still kind of watching, seeing fish, and I'm flipping drop shot out. And again, with the current and the wind, sometimes it's kind of hard to cast directly at where your target is. So you're playing with the live scope a bit, and I get 2 hits at one point. It's like thunk, and I just missed it. Like low elevation, like thunk. I'm like, oh, and like I'm watching him on screen. I can see him kind of going up to my drop shot and looking and stuff. So I missed those 2, and I'm like, okay, bummer. Like, let's try and slide in a little bit once, because like nothing happened for a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's slide in a little bit. So I slide a little shallower, and I start like getting into weeds. I'm like, no, I don't want weeds. I want to get the rocks. So I slide back out, and by the time I slide back out, every time I drop down, it was tick 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 tick. And if you fish the Great Lakes, you know what that infamous tick 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 very lightly as you can feel in your line. Freaking gobies. I mean, I knew like the bottom at that point I figured out was just absolutely covered in gobies. And I knew, again, experience, if you've got that many gobies all over in that area, any smallmouth in there, they're just running through, sucking those things up, and it's just luck that you get in front of it, essentially. They've got a buffet around them. The other part that I should share that I noticed that Friday night when I was sitting along shore trying to get cell service to send a text message out, there's a bunch of alewife that were dead on the shore, which told me definitely alewife were all over the place. If they're floating up like that, they're all over in the water. So the smallmouth are just filling up on those. Now you've got gobies. Immediately, I was like, that entire bay that I was at, it's shot. I'm out of here. I was like, I could sit and like pluck this out and wait it out because I know how smallmouth roam. You can wait 3 hours and something comes back through, and like that's just how it is. But I knew in my head that sticking around there wasn't going to get me what I needed, even if I did stick it out. And if I was going to make a move to do something else, I had to do it then. So by about 7:15, so again, lines in was 5. 7:15, I was pulling the kayak out of the water. I was pulling the plug trailing up and then driving over a half hour south to put back in. Now, where I put back in is an area where you and I fished earlier, actually. That's where I caught those largemouth. And yes, I went back in there. But there's an area off of that specific spot that is like always an absolute gimme to me. There's a big rock bar that comes off of a point. You just roll up on the rock bar, and it's out in like 20 foot of water. 20 to 15. Just you should be able to clean up on that. I immediately take off. I cut all the way across. I get over there. I get up on that rock bar, and I start even just looking around a live scope, and it is just dead. I can't see anything. I flip out a few times, and like sometimes with live scope, you're able, have fish fall, or might have a bait there, and something might pop out of nowhere. Like, okay, so there are fish here, because things will sit on the bottom. You think it's bottom, but it's actually a fish there. Whatever. I got nothing, and I hung it out there for like 15 minutes, which also in that moment. The breaker that I had set from my battery, my trolling motor, was a 50 amp breaker. My trolling motor draws 52 amps. Like, it should be fine, should be no problem. Well, somehow did something, whatever, and the breaker tripped. And so it should be easy. It's like you reset it, right? It did not want to reset. It would not lock on, would not reset. So there I am, just like floating off into the middle of the abyss, on an inland ocean on a 12.5-foot piece of plastic. Like, I'm not paddling this thing back. Okay, so I'm like, I've got 2 choices. I wait this out, try and figure something out, or hell with it. Look, I've got a few tools. We're pulling this apart. We're hardwiring. So I did. I'm out there. I literally pulled the whole breaker off. I just straight hardwired it and told myself, you cannot run at full speed. Like, I held myself at only half speed ever on the trolling motor because I was like, I'm not wrecking this trolling motor. It's freaking brand new, but I need to get around places. So, okay, I straight hardwired. And then like, okay, well, let's make a beeline back for an area where I know there's some like clean rock typically. Again, smallmouth tend to like the clean rock. And then from there, I knew we could get back to that spot where the largemouth were that I caught. And I really wanted to get in there. And so I kind of fished my way into it. Again, nothing. I spooked a couple of carp. I'm like, oh, this isn't promising. But then I kind of roll into that little kind of secret bay, so to speak. And it is weedy and like sloppy on top, but yet the weeds underneath are very scattered. Like, it was screaming for a buzzbait or a frog. Like, parts of it were a buzzbait, and then the rest of it like frog. Well, I went to go get one of my favorite crocodigator like clacker buzzbaits. I couldn't tie it on. I straight just dropped it right, and I just watched it go down. I don't know how, next to me, like not even falling in my boat, just next to me, plunk. And I'm like, you know what? That's just not to be. They grabbed a different buzz bait and I tied it on. I threw it like twice. I'm like, this sucks. I don't even like that buzz. I'm done with it. So I went straight to the frog, tossing around. Was it the Berkeley Swamp Lord, the poppin' frog?
Okay.
There's the bluegill pattern. I think looks so freaking awesome. So it was throwing that poppin' bluegill because I heard some poppin' actually, and there were bluegill in there.
Okay.
With probably my third or fourth cast in, I had a swirl, but nothing took. And then a little while later, had another kind of like swirl situation right after the bait hit the water. For all I know, it could have been carp. If if you're going to be completely honest, could have been. But I mean, there's
Right.
been bass in there. It looked bassy, and I could see there was bluegills, a ton of little bluegills swimming around. So like everything should have panned out. I just sat myself on top of slop, and I just fan casted the entire thing. I picked it apart every single direction I could. I hit every single thing. Nothing other than those two little swirls. By the way, in case you want an update, Rez, remember when we were back in that bay in was it May, and there was a deer kind of in the water
Oh,
on the shore.
yeah, yeah.
Still there. However, it's in the middle of the bay and it's just bones. I may have been parked next to that deer for a little bit while I was throwing the frog.
How did you not throw up? Because that thing was rancid when we saw it.
It was just straight bone. It was just a carcass floating. There was really nothing to it to actually stink. That I think was all gone. So
Did you see the other side of the antlers? Was it a
no, I didn't I was not sticking around to look that detailed or poke around. I just saw it literally next to me, and I think I almost hit it with my paddle. Anyway, the things you find out in nature.
Yeah.
But so I mean, at this point, I'm basically just over midday, and I've fished far north. I've come down and hit two things that I figure should produce something. I've got nothing. And the fact that I'm fishing in a tournament where everyone's fishing smallmouth and I'm thinking about largemouth, that should already say how Hail Mary I'm going. Well, then I know there's another area on a steep drop off that right at the bottom of the drop, there's weeds. And a lot of times they'll roam right on that very sharp edge or right at the bottom of that, right next to the weeds. So I just worked my way slowly through this entire area all morning. Again, drop shot, Ned. I threw everything that I had in the boat at him essentially, and I'm watching them on live scope, and I can literally see them at times coming up and looking and following, and then they just disappear off the screen. So it's not even like they go up or down. So that tells you they just turned away. So many times all day. My back hurt so bad the next 2 days after because all it was I sat hunched over essentially, turning a little knob on a live scope and staring at a screen. It was frustrating to have that happen. And I'm at that point now, there's 10 minutes left. I'm like, well, I guess I may as well start kind of working my way back to the ramp, and I'll maybe, throw a couple things on the way in. But I'm like, man, I'm gonna get humbled on my home water. I came up here I know how to catch these fish post spawn. I did it for I know. I'm getting humbled, and I don't know what's happening. And I start throwing a jerkbait around. I think it was my third cast. Just something knocked the snot out of it. I knew it was a smallie. Get the jump, and I'm like, oh, it's not that big, but hey, just stay on. We might be able to get out of this without, we not get the skunk. So I get the net instead of the boat flip. I throw the net in, and all three treble hooks are in the fish, and they're in the net now. And it is just it was there. That was a no doubter. That fish just knocked the snot out of the jerkbait. So I got it in, got it in time. It was literally with 5 minutes left in the tournament when I caught that one fish. I've never been so grateful for 13 3/4.
Hey, you got to take it when you can. And I mean, that's one thing that I was watching a reel today. Hopefully my boss doesn't listen to this podcast and watch the screen, the YouTube channel on this one. So I was watching Takahiro Amori on one of his classic wins, and he honestly pulled 3 fish in less than 5 minutes. You don't know until the very end. You just got to keep going. And
Yep.
After he won that classic, he just knew right at the very end that he was going to win that. He had 5 minutes left to get back to the ramp, check in. You never know until the very end, and you just got to keep casting. And a couple things I keep in mind, for myself when I'm having a hard day out on the water is, all right, you're not catching anything. Just be thankful that you're out. I fish a lot with my old man. You're out with your old man and making memories. make a joke out of it and just don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Don't say, oh, I jokingly say I suck at fishing, but I'm not
say
that
I'm
bad.
okay. I'm just okay.
Yeah,
I'm just
exactly. Just okay. I broke a prop. That's my okayest moment. We broke a prop on the trolling motor, launching the boat. Spent a whole whopping 2 minutes out on the water.
All right, so I will admit an okayest moment right here, and only my wife knows about this okayest moment right now. So, I've got brand new canoe boat. Take it out of the water. First time I take it out for a quick little test spin to play around, do some stuff, and then whatever. I caught a limit in an hour. That's always good omen, right? First time in the water, catching fish in limit of fish in an hour. Doesn't matter if they're 12 inches. It was 5 fish in an hour. Caught them doing different things. I was drop shot. I was crankbait. I was testing how I fished. Like I was putting the boat through the test. So then I'm coming off the water, and I've really like all this season I've taken to just launching off the back of the truck. When I come up out of the water, sometimes I'll pull it right back onto the back of the truck. Otherwise, I'll put the wheels on and wheel it up and then push in the back of the truck. But now the new canoe, like it's straight. I'm just always gonna go in and out, right into the back of the truck. It works so slick. Well, it works so slick to just jump in, pull it back into the back of the truck, and then pull the truck. So this ramp that I was at is a bit of a hill, right? So you come up out of the ramp, and I pull and I park off to the side for a second to like kind of pull my rods down and kind of get sorted out. And there's these kids come walking over, and this guy sitting over like across the street at this like parking lot thing with a boat. And I swear I saw this boat already on the lake earlier today. I'm like, oh, I don't want that guy just taking his time, leave, whatever. So like I'm not in a hurry to like get out of the way, so to speak. And so suddenly someone goes, "Hey, do you mind moving, sir, so we can get in?" And I look, I'm like, "Oh, they're trying to like wait for." I'm like, okay. I mean, still, honestly, they could have got in. There was plenty of room, but that's cool. I get in my truck and I go to like pull forward just like a little bit, and I barely touched the. It was like idle. But apparently I moved a little more up the hill. Boat went sailing right out of the back of my truck. Brand new
Oh,
boat.
oh,
Graphs come popping off. Nothing broke. I put a nice little 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 road rash right on the bow, but yeah. So apparently I didn't have it strapped in. I thought I like put one strap on. Apparently I didn't, and apparently it was just enough weight and just enough a hill change or something. And I was just grateful that I had the trolling motor off.
yeah, because the trolling motors, they're both expensive. I rather have a broken trolling motor though. Those are, I think, easier to fix than buying a brand new boat and waiting for the warranty to go through.
Right. But yeah, so I mean it's not that deep, it's not that bad, but it was just like, damn, this friggin' first time I have it. What am I doing? I suck at launching kayaks, you know? Um, but I got it back up finally. Everything's all good to go. Yeah, I literally left that going, I can't believe I did that. Like, what a freaking moron.
Don't worry. When I had in my first kayak tournament, um, on Little Green, I dropped my kayak from the roof of my truck because I would rooftop it.
Yep.
I dropped it from the roof of my truck.
I
I'm
used to
like,
rooftop my lightning strike. In fact, I think it was like one of the first times I was loading it up to take it out, like take it off. Yeah, it did. It kind of like slipped because I would do like the off the side and lean it and tip it. It's like started to slip and lost my grip and went and literally like clipped the entire mirror and everything right off my truck or my SUV, I should say.
it was a truck. You're fine. Um, yeah, when I did that, when I dropped my kayak off the roof of my truck, I was like, am I really that big of a rookie? Like, this is a $1,300 kayak, like just bare bone $1,300 kayak. Am I really that big of a rookie? Oh well, whatever. Go out there, and that was one of my first tournaments in a kayak, and I didn't know that for that one it was the Midwest kayak circuit,
Okay.
and what was it, like a 10-inch limit? Like you could
For
score 10
minimum
inch
size,
fish.
yeah, it
Yeah,
might be 10 inches for minimum size.
yeah. I had like 4 fish that were 10 inches, and I just wasn't. I was thinking bass boat, like, oh, 14 inches, got to keep them. Yeah, I threw all of those back, and I was never gonna place in that tournament, but I could have had something to show for it. But
Right.
I walked away with a goose egg on that one.
It's much like me in the Madison tournament a couple weeks ago when I think I've got a limit of all 5 of my fish are at least 16. So I'm like, I need bigger than 16, and I'm like catching 14s and 15s and like just going plunk 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 plunk, and then I get that random 2 of those fish got denied because the glare on the identifier. So like then suddenly there's a 13 and 11 that both are like in my limit, and I've just been throwing back tons of like 15, like
It it's mistakes. I mean, it is what it is. It's over and it's done with. You learn from them. I mean, I bet you this time when you took a picture of your fish, you made
that
sure that
one.
your tag was good.
I did. I was so concerned the shadow, the way it was going, that like me holding my phone, my shadow was like covering the fish over my board. Like, so I was like trying to like lean a certain way, but also like still be overhead. And I went like wide. Yeah, there was a bit of a more panic in that sort of situation, but
But that's how you get better, though. You
yeah.
have the crappy days out on the water. You learn from your mistakes, and you just go from there.
So we went through kind of the failure on my part and feeling like a letdown to my family, and I had to ask my wife if I was allowed to come home after the showing that I put up in on my home water. But
Did you get her bacon though?
I did. I did get the merchant's bacon, a lot of it.
Then you're fine. You got the pass right there.
Yeah, I'm home. I'm here in the studio. We're good to go. But after finding out the bigger fish and everyone that kind of caught limits was actually fishing shallow, like less than 6 foot of water. So I was the complete opposite in fishing what I know and what I thought would be there. And I still think that most of the fish that were shallow were smaller than the fish that I was targeting. Which, I mean, again, you want to catch big fish, right? Isn't that the goal? I mean, catching fish is the goal in a tournament situation. But I was fishing the fish that were full of alewife. That's why what I was seeing was they were just kind of lethargic. They'd look and kind of follow it, something like, what's this? And just disappear. They weren't interested in eating. And I think that was the problem, is I was going after those fish. The largemouth situation, I don't know, that was a Hail Mary. But randomly when I got up and was like 7 foot of water on the way to the dock, throwing the jerk bait, I got one to smash it, and then find everyone was catching them shallow. Maybe that's what I should have done from the start. Maybe I could have stayed in the first bay, stayed shallow, fished over the weeds or whatever. Like, but again, those are the lessons you learn. The moments you have from you breaking the prop. That's also told me the lesson already that I was in question to myself. So the motor guy that I have, it comes with a 3-blade prop. I think they call it I don't know, the knife, or I forget what they name the prop. They often have the fancy names, but they have another one's a 2-blade, the katana. And it's supposed to cut through weeds better and take up less power and all this sort of thing. And I'm like, how do I really want to spend another $50 on a stupid prop? You breaking
Do
your
it.
prop told me I'm going to do it because I'll put that on, and I've got this one as a backup because you never
Yep.
know when I run into a rock or something and I need a prop. This is the random weird thing where like now in a kayak, I have to think about more things because I need to make sure that I've got the parts or other things. And I always did on my other kayak. Like I had, the fin drive and the Lightning. I had like a spare shaft and everything. So if I hit something and broke one of those pins for a fin, I had a spare mount that I could change out my whole drive, and I had the tools to do it. But now there's like a few more parts that I feel I have to have with me in order. Like again, I've ditched the crappy like breaker that I have, and I bought 2 more of different ones, and I moved up to a 60 amp. So hopefully that will not be a problem anymore, and I don't have to worry about getting too close to full speed and bonk, crapping out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, my dad and I, we always over prepare for stuff. Like when I travel anywhere, I keep an impact wrench in my truck just in case, because I'm not taking my T-bar and changing a tire on the side of the road. I'm an IndyCar this thing, zip, 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 change the tire. And so we keep a toolbox in the boat. And here I was smart enough to start jumping around from compartment to compartment because I knew for a fact we had a spare prop in the boat somewhere. We did, but it was the wrong size because we upgraded our trolling motor. And I'm like, oh, it's not going to work at all whatsoever. But now we got the new one on there. The boat's running fine. It's good to go. We're going to knock on some wood. Hopefully nothing happens for the tournament. We got a couple more weeks left. Hopefully we find some good steady fish. Hopefully it stops raining here because it's just been pouring on a weekly
Yeah.
basis. Water levels are through the roof. Hopefully we get on something here quick. And
Yeah.
hopefully
So,
they don't cut the weeds. Let's just put it that way.
yeah, anytime I see the weed cutter on a lake, I'm like, oh, I'm out of there. See ya.
Yeah.
I'm gonna avoid that area for a day or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of lessons learned. And it goes to show that failures or things going wrong don't actually mean the end. It doesn't mean the worst of the worst. And it doesn't mean you suck at whatever. You're just okay. We're all just okay. It's all right
Yep.
to be okay.
Yep.
But it's all about accepting it going forward and figuring it out. Like, I did not hang my head. Like I said, I feel a little embarrassed of like, oh my gosh, like my home, like, but that's all me stuff. Nobody actually really cares. There's a ton of people that blanked in that tournament and a whole bunch of people that like only caught one fish, two fish, like red fish, blue fish. There was a lot of that, and it all comes with experience. And again, all the guys that really caught them were fishing super shallow. All of us that didn't, were doing something else.
Yep.
And had I been up there earlier in the week or on a day when it was sunny to see that there's still fish roaming shallow or on beds and all that stuff, that would have been the hint. That would have been the little piece of the puzzle that I needed to figure it out. And I think that everything would be completely different. But without that little piece of the puzzle, which again goes to show the small margin for error when it comes to tournament fishing. It's again, you and your dad out this weekend. You said, he's like, well, what can we do? It's just that little, you just need that little hint, that little clue. Sometimes you can get it while you're on the water.
Right.
Sometimes you needed to have it a day or two ahead of time.
You got to do what you got to do. And like you just said, while you're out on the water, it's about paying attention to the detail. That's the biggest thing. You always got to be, there's a reason why we're tired after a day of fishing. And it's not just because we're out in the sun, in the waves, in the fresh air. It's because we're
Sucking them
vigilant.
beers, yo. Oh, that was bottle bass,
Ugh.
Beer is important. Fish are the bonus.
Right. You just got to pay attention to the small things. And when you notice them, you got to try them. Because once you try them and you catch a fish, there you go. You got a puzzle piece put together.
There you got it. Well, thanks for popping on again. So now we officially had 2 repeat guests. It's always fun to chat fishing. And like I said, when you had sent the text about, that you broke a prop and this and that, I'm like, whoa, hang on. There's too many things I feel are going to be similar here and lessons with failure in the outdoors. We got to talk about this on the show. So thanks for joining. Again,
thank you for having me.
Someone wants to follow you on social. What is it again, Rez?
It's Jon_Reznack. That's on Instagram.
There you go. John, one of the clam pros, Blackfish Gear. We will catch you next week. I don't know what I'm doing. The OKS Cook guys and I are supposed to do a collab on something, but I think that they are listening more to the way that I talk about food, and they're intimidated. So that's what I think is going on with that. So maybe we'll be with them next week. Maybe we'll be with somebody else. But thanks again for joining us. We appreciate you. Again, give us a like, give us a subscribe if you're on YouTube, write a review wherever you're watching podcasts. We will catch you next week.